Teachers at Reddit, what is the greatest way a student has misinterpreted one of your assignments? I had to give a mandatory state writing test to 4th graders. The prompt was related to our study of that state's Native Americans and focused somehow on ears of corn. I think they had to write a narrative from the perspective of a pre-colonial Native American person. Apparently, this kid had never heard the expression ears of corn, so it morphed into this weird sci-fi story along the lines of The Fly, where a kid's ears turn into corn cobs. He ran out of time, so I don't know how it would have resolved, but toward the end the main character was just saying, "What? I can't hear you. I have ears of corn." I was laughing so hard reading it I couldn't even explain to the other teachers on my team what was so funny. English teacher here. I once took a look as a student was writing a paper and saw that she was analyzing the great W.H. Ray author Edgar Allan Poe. When I explained the difference between that and horror, she looked like she wanted to die. Edit. As some pointed out, this brilliant teacher misspelled his middle name. She was analyzing the great W.H. Ray author Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe? School psych. Saw a teacher give a worksheet to a kid with autism. The kid would not complete the worksheet in class because it said homework at the top. The student was not at home. We crossed off the word home and handed it back. And all was good with the world. When I was in elementary school and learning essay formats for the first time, I thought double space meant 2 spaces between each word. Lol. Teacher got mad at me when I turned in my paper thinking I did it as a joke when I genuinely didn't know. I taught 1st grade and one of the units around Thanksgiving time was a study on North American Plains Indians. I had the kids color the Great Plains region on a map. When I was looking over their work at the end of the day, I noticed one of the kids drew airplanes on their map. I was thinking in my head, WTF? Why did he draw airplanes? Then it clicked when I said it out loud to my husband. That poor baby was probably so confused the whole time I was talking about the Plains Indians. Probably imagined them riding in airplanes. Not a teacher but a fellow student had to do a project about something European, so he chose the Notre Dame Cathedral. He ended up doing a project worth 2 test grades on the Notre Dame football team. He got a 0. When I assign a math problem with 4 parts, A, D, and a few geniuses, just circle one of the questions. I'm not a teacher, but in 2nd grade, we had to research a president. On the day where we presented, most people did your standard presidents. Washington, Lincoln, Kennedy, etc. And then this kid goes up with a presentation about President Squidward. Honestly, it was kind of impressive because he managed to forge all of the info we were supposed to have in 2nd grade. But in the end, he had to redo his project. Not a teacher, but in middle school I thought my teacher asked us to write papers on the Transcendental Railroad. I wrote half of it before I realized she probably said Transcontinental Railroad instead. From my mom, who was a kindergarten teacher. They sent home large blank tackboard cutouts of turkeys with the kids around Thanksgiving, and the kids were supposed to decorate them and bring them back in to share with the class. One student brought in their turkey decorated with feathers and some convincingly real looking feet stapled on the bottom. She left the finished turkeys on a table in the classroom overnight and came back in the morning to find ants crawling all over those real looking feet. Turns out the turkey feet didn't just look real. Not a teacher but a student. For Spanish class, we had to pick 5 different Spanish speaking countries and research and write about them. I assumed that we had to do it all in Spanish because this is Spanish class after all. Nope. You were supposed to do the assignment in English. I got bonus marks, but I wasted so much time on that. Yeah. Wasted all that time learning. I'm a preschool teacher. One of our investigations was learning about a Venus flytrap. Afterwards the children were asked to make their own representations of the plant and one kid drew a picture of the taco trapper. It was genius. Really. Not a teacher, but my history teacher told us to write an answer in our own language, basically in your own words, without a format. Me being a total smartass decided to write the assignment in Hindi. The teacher took me to the headmaster for doodling in my notebook. When I was in like 6th or 7th grade, somehow I misinterpreted this assignment where we were writing children's books. I'm not really sure how. Maybe I confused the don't size and the amount of pages or something. And somehow I didn't know we were basically supposed to write a paragraph or so per page, with the illustration above it. So I wrote this long ass King story. I can't remember the exact details. It was either 13 pages or around 20. Single spaces. And like size 12 or 14 font. IDK how I screwed up so bad. The teacher didn't even bother grading the whole thing because it was so long. She did a little bit and then just gave me the grade. We got them binded and printed as hardcover books too. So I still have it somewhere. I basically just copied the story from Ocarina of Time, well the childhood part, but changed the characters, 3 main characters traveling together, and changed the names of locations like Death Mountain and Shti. And this wasn't the last time I ripped off the story from Ocarina of Time and got an A. I had my students do World War II diaries. They picked someone living through an aspect of the war and wrote a diary, using real events as touchstones. The most popular choice was writing about a Jewish person in the Holocaust. One year, a girl wrote in her diary that she was sad because the Germans had put her family shop out of business and now she couldn't buy any presents for her family for Christmas. WOWEE. When I was in middle school we had an assignment that had the statement in numerals. Write down the number listed and the numbers were written out like 5032 and you had to simply write 5032. Well I had read Asterix and Obelix and went home and did a ton of research on how to write Roman numerals like VXXXII and my teacher cracked up in front of the whole class and damn was I embarrassed when she pointed out how I did the assignment. High school IT class in the UK about 5 or 6 years ago. I was teaching students how to set up a basic website using Dreamweaver. Following the new site wizard, students had already planned out a rough idea for their site, the titles of each page, etc. The choice of content was up to them. About the third screen in, I say in this box, give your site a name. Kids type in my football site, website about music, etc. And some even go as far as making up a URL, www.mywebsite.com, etc. Cue hysterical laughter from one corner of the room. 2 or 3 other kids look across to see what's gone on and they too burst out laughing. I walk across to see a student has named his site Dave. The funnest thing was that even with half the class on the floor in laughter, he didn't see the issue. It asked for a name for his site. He'd given it a name. He wasn't autistic or had any other issues previously. He'd just chosen this moment to go full on. Not a teacher. But when I was a freshman in high school my English teacher had us write a short essay on fight or flight response. I don't know what I was thinking, but I mistook flight literally. So there I was writing an essay on airplanes and why they were so great. To make things worse, after the time limit expired the teacher asked a few students to read theirs out loud, and who did she ask first? That's right. Your boy Conspicuous. I bet some of the kids in your class were freaking out thinking that they had written theirs wrong when you were reading yours. Sandwiches. These are not sorceresses that live on the beach. I must have been about 6-7 and for some reason just had a complete mental block on what a sandwich was. This meant whilst everyone else wrote about their favorite bready meal, I was desperately putting together some nonsense about which I liked the most and why. I realized my mistake when we were asked to stand up and read what we had written. I gave a fun assignment, wherein students were asked to write a poem or prose piece about a social injustice. Dude wrote a very long song about how he couldn't get any white girls to dome him. High school project. The topic was ethnic cleansing. She wrote about the importance of hygiene. Not a teacher, but I work in an art class. A student, like 6, was drawing a picture of a camel with a single hoop earring. One of the teachers I work with told the student to draw the earring. The student heard eel ring and drew rings made of eels all over the camel's body. Obligatory not a teacher blew it. My friend posted her son's homework on Facebook a while back. He had a bunch of vocabulary homework which was a list of words that he needed to look up a definition for. Well, they don't have a print dictionary, so she sent him to Google. Thank God she checked his homework before he turned it in, because apparently the first definition of one of his words was from Urban Dictionary. Thunderclap. A thunderclap is the sound of a scrotum slapping against the body when going balls deep. Black History Month. First grade. Fellow classmate did his report on Harriet Tubman, including a picture he drew. He drew her as a white lady with blonde hair. I was 7 and blown away by how dumb that was. I don't know. Children don't notice things. I've told this story before, but when my son was around this age he was trying to describe another student to me. I worked at the school, so I knew most of the kids but couldn't figure out who he was talking about. Finally, when I figured it out, he described her as brown hair and brown eyes among other things. I asked him why he didn't tell me she was black. He said, "She's not black. She is brown. Everyone is a shade of brown." I'm a math teacher. Had a set of questions that said solve the equations or inequalities. Some kid wrote equation inequality etc for the answers. Edit. These were high school sophomores. Not an assignment. But a few years ago all of our year 9 students were grouped together to watch a film together for a lesson involving people with disabilities. One of our coordinators was talking about the film before it was shown and explaining that the film was in French. He said that although the film was in another language, it had subtitles, so they could read along and follow what was happening. A concerned year 9 girl leaned over to me and whispered in a concerned voice, "But Mr. Mazinjapan, I can't read French." After taking a moment and realizing that she was indeed serious, I quietly reassured her that French was a very easy language and she'd be surprised how easy it is to read. Not a teacher. But one time during school I was looking at this wall of posters on lab safety. One of them stuck out as it wasn't on lab safety but bike safety. Turns out the girl who had done it misinterpreted the assignment and thought it was a general safety poster, and she wrote hers on bike safety. I was a TA in a French class and the assignment was to make a French alphabet bookie. G. A is for ananas, pineapple. There were 2 weird ones while I was grading. 1. He wrote it completely in English, and when asked why, he said the example the teacher gave was P is for Paris and Paris is an English word. 2. This other student translates English to French, so he wrote A is for poem, apple, and we were just so confused. Not a teacher. But I once had a friend ask our English teacher if he could text in his essay, since he forgot the file at home. He literally took all day typing it out on his iPhone and emailed it to the teacher right before the last period, when it would have been officially late. Close bracket. He got a B. It was intentional misinterpretation. But a student wrote his final paper on how awful the teaching staff and class was. The assignment had a prompt which he didn't follow, but it was an opinion paper and he backed up his opinion with evidence, so it was one of the better in the course. Not a teacher. But a witness to the biggest douchebag move I've ever seen. We had a contest to see who could memorize the most digits of pi. We were all nerds. And the contest was 5 minutes on a whiteboard writing. Whoever had the most in the end won. So one guy gets up and just starts writing 000000000 really fast. Then when the call for 10 seconds left came, he wrote a 1. Then the notation for the number being in base pi. He won. But the Indian kid who actually memorized hundreds of digits of pi lost his mind and tried to kill him. Math class was fun. In my history class, a friend of mine was assigned a presentation on Abraham. Somehow, not being a native English speaker and not knowing who Abraham is, he spelled Abraham wrong and Google suggests the word is Abrahmin, so he ended up doing a presentation on Brahmin and the caste system. The teacher was like WTF and stopped him halfway. It was f-king hilarious. Edit. Not a teacher but my architecture professor, drafting class, gave us homework to write the quick brown fox jumps over lazy dog to practice our handwriting. My classmate wasn't really listening and he ended up submitting a very nice drawing of a fox jumping over a lazy dog. He was not good at following instruction but professor thought he was great at sketching though. One of the best artists in our freehand drawing class. Student who misinterpreted here. I can't swim /t. Due to the fact that I am terrified of being in water and it would take the entire lesson to try and coax me into the water. And 9 times out of 10 I wouldn't even do it. One day, when I was about 7, my teacher said to me if you aren't going to get in the pool, just don't come next week. And I took it literally, as autistic kids are prone to doing. Went and sat in the library instead. Cue my parents and me being called for a meeting with the headmaster, where I tearfully explained my teacher had told me not to go and the headmaster being really nice and agreeing that what else was I supposed to make of that. Then the teacher got into a lot of trouble and I just got excused for the rest of the swimming classes. I have had a few worksheets I have given out and had kids return it blank, thinking they would get credit. No. You don't get any points for giving me back a blank paper with your name on it. Why even bother handing it in like that? I also have students an assignment where they had to write 3 fictional vignettes of 2 pages or more each. One kid wrote 6 vignettes of 1 page each. Another wrote an essay about his grandpa. Not sure why. Honestly, I'd give the 6 vignettes kid a pass since he did the required amount of writing. I was the student in this scenario. History teacher asked us to draw what the heavens looked like from a perspective from hundreds of years ago. We were supposed to draw the planets based on either the geocentric or heliocentric theories. What ended up happening was a bunch of the class drew stereotypical depictions of heaven. To be fair, what did he think would happen? Who talks like that? Can you add 12 and 7? Answer: yes. Not a teacher. But I had an assignment in 9th grade where we were supposed to write a 1-page story using our vocabulary words. I thought it would be hilarious to use the name Bendover and Mike Hunt in my war-themed 4-page paper. Ben was used throughout. Mike only said his name once before dying in a plane crash. Teacher knew I was an excellent writer and volunteered to read my paper. I tried to tell her not to read it out loud. Needless to say, there was a nice bit of snickering and she never read my papers out loud again and she talked to me about my name choices. My sister and her friends did their grade 10 French project completely in Spanish. Neither of them noticed somehow. Edit. I actually have a good one. My teacher assigned us to create a model of something from ancient civilization, as well as creating the same thing in the present and future. Most of the class interpreted this in the obvious way. The Colosseum, Madison Square Garden, some sort of virtual reality /t. Egyptian sarcophagus, Christian burial, having your ashes shot off into space. Then this one kid created a model of the Greek Parthenon. Except made it 3 times. With the present and future models being continually more eroded and broken down. Fkin hilarious. My friend told a story about how on the 8th of November, she told her toddler to get ready because they had to go vote. Her 3-year-old goes and gets a bathing suit and towel. Her mom is like, okay, that's kind of weird, but 3-year-olds are weird, so whatever. She lets it slide. They arrive at the polling station and walk in to see all the voting booths. At this point the daughter goes, where is the boat? You said we were going to go vote. Not a teacher. But I had an assignment in a creative writing class where we had to write a 1-act play and the one that got the highest grade would be performed at an assembly. Well, not only did I misinterpret the assignment, but I vastly overestimated the capabilities of our theater program. So instead of handing in a 10-15 minute play, I wrote what was essentially a 95-page screenplay. I got the highest grade on the assignment, but it obviously didn't get performed. I once worked in an urban school. The children had just heard the story of the nativity and were given a piece of paper on which to draw things from the story to go with given words. A boy asked me what a stable is, so I told him that it was somewhere that farmers keep horses. He drew a giant bag with a horse's head peeking out of the top. Bless him. That kid needs a trip to the countryside. Also, once we were doing a project on road safety and a boy drew an actual zebra crossing the road for a zebra crossing. None of these charming things happen anymore because we can Google them to look at. But it does mean that people are a little less ill-informed.